Sophia Khawly is a 35-year-old Miami native. She has been a nurse for 17 years. She started as an LPN upon graduating high school, then earned her BSN and finally her MSN soon after to become a family nurse practitioner. She had been working as a traveling nurse practitioner for 9 years now. She has worked in 10 different states and over 25 different practices. In her free time, she travels internationally and has been to over 50 countries.
Welcome to the podcast, Sophia. We're so happy to have you on. She's recording in Spain, which is super bougie.
No.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting with you girls.
Oh my goodness, I'm so
cool.
excited. Yeah, so she reached out. She wanted to share her story with our listeners because she's like, listen, I don't think you've had enough traveling NP, locum NPs on the podcast. You need to get the word out about us. So I was like, okay, girl, let's do this. So I'm so excited to chat about kind of what she's been doing. Again, like, Sophia, tell us from your words and your view, kind of what it is that you do, kind of how you landed in this spot in your career.
Yeah, so I'm a family nurse practitioner. I worked for 3 years in a permanent practice in Miami, seeing all ages. And, you know, life eventually became mundane, the same routine every day. And I was wondering, hey, can I do travel nursing the way that RNs can? So I looked it up online. And at that time, there wasn't that much information about it because it's actually called Locum Tenens, which is a term used for temporary placement. And that's for all providers, including physicians and these as well, as long as nurse practitioners. So I wanted to get into traveling, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to leave home because all my family's there. So I decided to do a local assignment first to make sure I was comfortable jumping into like a new environment, meeting new people. So I ended up working for Target Clinic at that time, and it was pretty straightforward. And I knew I was ready to take on my first travel assignment. So I ended up accepting a first assignment in Washington State because I wanted to be on the opposite side of the country from the U.S. And I was always interested in traveling to that Seattle area. And it actually was an amazing experience because I got to work in a new environment, learn different things. The patient population was different. And then plus the agencies were paying for my housing and a rental car for me and all my travel. And you know, paying more than a permanent nurse practitioner makes as well. So immediately that first assignment, I became hooked and I knew I could never go back to a full-time permanent position.
I love that. I was saying earlier that I love that you accepted a local position first to test out the waters, because I think that really holds a lot of people back, like to try a new experience and kind of feel out how it's going to be. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, most people are afraid with doing locum tenens because they think that you're not provided much training, which, you know, can be the case. Sometimes I'll start seeing patients within the first few hours, but sometimes, you know, they will give a week training, it just depends. But after a while, you just get used to it because primary care is the same thing everywhere, just seeing patients, and it's just really the EHR that you have to learn the new system.
So Sophia, how long is a typical assignment that you would get?
Yeah, so most assignments are 13 weeks. And since I do it full time, usually I'll take at least a week off in between. That way I can rest, like see family, or travel abroad during my free time as well.
That's great. That's great. So what would you say would be the best assignment you ever had for Locum Tenens since you started?
Yeah, so I have several answers. My favorite place to live is San Diego, California, just because I love being by the beach and it's really diverse, lots of things to do. And my favorite place that I worked, I would say, is in Maine because I was there in the summer, so the weather was great, and the patients are really laid back. It was more of a rural area, and the rural assignments are nice because you're not super busy like you are in the big cities. We're only seeing maybe like 10 or 12 patients per day, which is really, you know, laid back.
Right. That's great. That's awesome. All right. Let's see. So what would you say to a nurse practitioner that's interested in locum tenens, but they're a little hesitant to jump in?
Yeah, honestly, I had gotten 3 years of experience before doing locum tenens. I recommend that someone has at least 1 year of experience because that first year of working as a nurse practitioner is the most challenging. You know, you're having to look things up all the time. You know, after work, you have to keep studying. And that's going to be really hard when you do locum tenens because you're supposed to be, you know, the expert and work independently. I would recommend getting that 1 year experience and also applying for state licenses, because some people think that you can contact an agency and they'll do everything for you. But a lot of times the recruiters are unlikely to apply for a license for you because they have so many other providers who say, "Oh yeah, I want to do locum," but they never follow through. And most of the sites, they don't want to wait for a license. They want you to already be licensed so you can start within a few weeks. So it's better to get your license proactively yourself, and then the agency can reimburse you before you start.
Sophia, I have a question to ask you. If there was a nurse practitioner she has one license, she's working a job, she's like, okay, I want to do something new. I want to just get out there. I want to try this traveling NP thing. What would be some of the steps that she would do to get all these licenses? And because it just seems like eating an elephant, right? I'm sure you did it piece by piece. Could you walk me through what that looked like as you kind of started getting more interested in this? Okay.
Well, I think the first thing is there are local assignments. So that's what I did is, try somewhere local first to make sure it's the right fit for me. And you can also travel to other parts in your state and use that license. And there are also assignments that are federal assignments, like working with Indian Health Services, with the military, and the VA. So you can use any state license. So those can be an option. And there are also states that are really easy to get licensed in, where it takes like 1 week, you barely do any work, versus other states that can take months. You could do take a test and all these things. So I would recommend getting the user license first. And also the recruiters, they can kind of guide you at which states have the most jobs available so that you can just start with that state. So I knew Washington State was a popular one for locum. So I started with that state because I knew that I can have multiple job options.
Yeah.
Because Jackie, you recently kind of branched outside of Florida, and I was like super inspired by it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to get some more states under my license, under my belt here, as you were describing what you were doing, correct?
Yeah. So, I'm not doing Locum Tenens, but a remote position. And, you see that for example, I'm in Florida and they needed someone in Michigan. So I proactively got, like you said, Sophia, it wasn't that hard. I did a couple extra continuing education requirements, and then that's it. Unfortunately, there's not a compact nurse license for nurse practitioners, which is really unfortunate, but hopefully it'll come one day. But yeah, it's not that hard. It's just a matter of doing it, as far as was my experience. And I think that's a great piece of advice, to be proactive, because a lot of the nurse practitioners I've spoken to, they're like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, if it gives you more opportunities, might as well get it under your belt. And then when the opportunity arises, you're in. So
yeah. What is a compact license, Jackie? If you will explain.
So like for an RN, you can have a compact license to work in, I believe, in most states in the United States, whereas nurse practitioners have to get individual state licenses to practice in each state.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. So having the compact RN license makes it easier, because when you apply for the other state, if you already have the RN one, you don't have to worry about that. You just have to get the NP license.
Right, correct. Yep.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Man, learning something today for sure. Loving this. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what to do when you're first starting off if you're considering it. Now, one thing we talk a lot about, because we're both moms and you've got all the responsibilities of a family and home, and now you add really cool traveling NP job. How realistic do you think this is if you are a mom and you may not be in your single girl era? Could you speak on that?
Yeah, I've met so many different types of locum tenens NPs on the road, and some of them have young children that they bring with them. In that case, they end up living in an RV so that they can be more comfortable and they don't have to keep on repacking. They can bring more things with them. In that case, their spouse was able to work from home so they could help out more with the childcare and also the traveling. And then I've also met people who have older kids who are in school. So what they do is they work in acute care in the hospital. So they work 7 on and 7 off. So the locum tenens agency will fly them to the city for their 1 week shift, then fly them back home. And then they spend a whole week with their family. Then they go back a week later. They like that schedule because it allows them to have more off time to spend with their family, actually.
Yeah.
Oh my
a lot of different options, it sounds like. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Awesome.
So this is totally doable if you want to live a non-conventional lifestyle. If you wanted to work local locum tenens as an NP, you could. But if you were like, no, I kind of want to travel, that's something that, again, I've actually thought about too, because we homeschool and we take everything with us. I mean, we don't necessarily have to go to a classroom to do our homework. And my husband works remotely. So I've always been like, could we just like pack it up in an RV and go? Like that sounds like it'd be really this cool adventure. Yeah. That's really neat. One of the things that I was super interested in, definitely piqued my ears when you and I were kind of first reaching out, was that you are financially free, which is a big deal. And it's something that you said, hey, listen, I'm all about NPs making coin, making their bags, and being free. So tell me a little bit about what that freedom has been looking like for you.
Yeah, so I think that traveling NP is like the ultimate life hack because you're compensated more than a staff NP and you can take as much time off as you want. So you're literally working less but making more. And also the most expensive parts of living is housing and car expenses, and those can be completely covered for you as a traveler. So for example, when I'm on assignment, they pay for an apartment or house for me, and they're like in nice places. Like I'm living on the beach, I'm living with nice views of the city, and I don't really have to pay for housing. I do have a place I return to in Miami when I go back home, but it's just like a room, so I'm paying like a few $100 a month, which is, not much. And as far as the car, I used to have my own car, but when I started traveling, I realized it's kind of annoying to have to drive all the way across country or to like ship your car. So I got rid of it, and then the agencies provide me with a rental car. So these days, the average car payment is like $700 a month. So I'm able to save all that and to invest it instead.
That's awesome.
So even though I'm traveling or using something new, I'm able to save like almost 90% of my income, and I'm able to use that to invest and to do other, projects. So I've been able to max out my 401k, max out my IRA, have a brokerage account, and also invest in real estate. And that has allowed me to reach my financial independence number, which at the time was $1 million. But since then, my net worth has grown to $1.4 million. And
What?
I
love it.
Thanks. I originally was planning on maybe stop working at that time, but I realized I do like being a nurse practitioner, especially when you're a travel one. You're always like saving the day. You're helping, other providers who are like stressed out. Patients are happy because they've waited like 3 months for that appointment. So I do want to continue working as a nurse practitioner, and with locums, it's great because you don't have to work year round. I've cut back to only working 6 months a year. So that allowed me to do my other passions, which is like traveling and writing and stuff like that.
Okay, Sophia, you sold us. We're leaving our families tomorrow. I love your transparency too, because I feel like this is such a good topic that people don't talk about. And like you are just putting it all out there, that it is possible, And so what about, I don't know if you'd be able to answer this, but so what about a nurse that really like provides healthcare for their family as far as benefits go? Like how do you navigate the healthcare route?
Yeah, so there are two types of agencies. Most are 1099, so you're paid like self-employed or like a business, but there are some that are W-2, so they do offer benefits such as health insurance and like a 401k. So I usually alternate who I work with. So if I know I want to do all my checkups this year, I'm going to work with that W-2 agency so I can have the health insurance. But if I know there's nothing I really need health-wise, then I'll work with 1099 and just have my own private insurance, which has like a higher deductible because I don't really plan on using it.
Very smart. Very smart. I love that. Wow. Very cool. And it's a very different feeling when you need to work versus you want to work, right? Like you feel comfortable with your finances. And so you're able to, I think, have a different, I don't know, just in my mind, have a different approach to work, right? As far as like, if you don't love a job, you don't have to continue or take it. You can be a little bit more selective in your choices. I'm going to go ahead and ask you another one of our questions. Okay. So can you tell me about a failure and how it was actually a huge blessing in disguise during your career?
Attention all nurse practitioners and NP students, are you tired of feeling the disconnect between clinical rotations and didactic teaching? Say hello to Success NP's clinical booklet guides.
As NPs ourselves, we know how valuable it is to have a resource that helps bridge the gap between clinical and class. So we created the digital resource to do just that. Our clinical booklets cover 5 major NP tracks: psych, adult, peds, family, and women's health. Success NPs wants to create tools and provide support NPs need to thrive in their careers.
So why wait? Check out our Success NP Etsy shop, linked in the show notes, for our digital guides and other digital clinical resources. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
So when I first started doing the traveling NP, I had worked on an assignment in California. And at first, I had worked in California for almost 1 year in different cities. And at first, it was like a love-hate relationship because I loved living in California, but I hated the jobs there. Yeah, they really work you hard.
Yeah.
So one assignment, I was seeing like 40 patients per day, and this was like an 8-hour primary care practice. And 40 patients is a lot. Like normally, if you want to have a comfortable schedule, it's like 20 patients.
Right.
So I ended up just leaving that assignment early, and I just broke the contract. I said I don't feel comfortable seeing that many patients. My license is at stake, and it was a good learning lesson because after that, I put on my contract that the maximum patients I would see anywhere would be 20 patients.
Wow.
So I don't start any assignment unless the most patients I'm seeing is 20 patients per day, because that allows me to feel comfortable. I don't have to rush seeing the patients, and I don't miss anything.
Yeah, that's great. I wouldn't even think that you would be able to put something like that on your contract, like how many patients you can see per day. But I think we learn that as we get older, right? As nurse practitioners, to set boundaries. I think when you're a new nurse practitioner, you just take anything and think that's the way it has to be. So that's great advice. Yeah. 40 patients a day is crazy. I never understand practices that say they see that many patients. It just literally is a factory, You're sacrificing patient care, and medical errors must be rampant with that many patients.
So let's talk about that. Like, how do you cancel a locum tenens contract? Because I'm sure for an NP that's like, okay, wait, I want to get out. I didn't think I could. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, so normally the agencies have you sign an agreement that says if you want to leave early, you have to give a 30-day notice. But in my experience, you can just give your notice whenever you want. If you feel like your license is at stake, you can say, I'm leaving tomorrow. In my experience, they don't actually enforce that contract, like no one's going to sue you, no one's going to have you pay them back money. They understand, and they want to keep you as a customer.
Wow.
Gotcha. And so as far as, and you brought up another thing that I question about suing and insurance and malpractice insurance, what is it that you carry as a traveling NP to protect yourself? Do you have tail end insurance? I mean, because you're going from place to place to place, which to me feels like, oh man, I don't know if I made a mistake and a maid and downhill. How do you know how to protect yourself?
Yeah, for each assignment, they provide malpractice insurance with tail, so you're pretty much covered. And a lot of the places, like the federally qualified health centers, since they're federal, they can't be sued technically. So there's a lot of protections in that place.
Nice. So do you prefer those assignments because you know that there's just more protection, or do you just have no preference? You're like, I'm not afraid. Just send me wherever you want to.
Yeah, I have no preference, but of course, that's why I want to practice in a safe way where I'm not seeing, too many patients at one time.
That's good.
No, I was just curious how the work culture is when you're just plopped into a new practice that everyone knows each other and you're the newbie and you're the temporary person. What is your experience with the work culture?
Actually, that's funny because a lot of times I try to keep to myself because I feel like I already have so many friends.
Oh, that's good.
But people, they're always excited to get to know the new person, and they're curious about your lifestyle. After 3 months, I become friends with almost the entire practice, and it's funny because they always throw me a going away party, and my siblings, they make fun of me. They're like, how come you work for 3 months, they throw you a party, but I work somewhere for years and they don't throw me anything?
It's true. That's awesome, though. That's totally the opposite of what I would expect, I think a lot of people are probably intimidated by, that's awesome. What situation is it that these practices need a locum tenens? Is there a nurse practitioner out on maternity leave, or what's the situation?
Yeah, different reasons. Sometimes the maternity leave, someone just retired. Other times they're looking for permanent placements, but those can take longer. It can take, 3 to 6 months, so they need coverage right away. Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool. So we talked a little bit about your career. I think we've really gone into locums really well. I think we've talked about kind of the process and what it looks like. For a new nurse practitioner or someone that's thinking about, they're starting off their career, what would be one piece of advice you would give them if you could go back to yourself and tell new NP Sophia this little piece of advice to hold on to in their career?
Yeah, I think as a nurse practitioner, I would have told myself to start the locum tenens even earlier because it is the ultimate life hack. You don't have to be, working more than your 40 hours per week, which most nurse practitioners do. They're having to
Mm-hmm.
work into charting at home or stay after hours. So I think even if people don't want to travel, they can do locum tenens locally. If they don't want to do it forever, they can just do it for a few years. And it does make you a stronger nurse practitioner, like with skills, because you're seeing so many different types of patients. You're also following different providers, so you learn things from them, like how they're managing things.
That's
Hmm.
good.
So it's really interesting. You're always learning new things. Yeah.
So if you could go back, you would tell Sophia, baby NP Sophia, do it sooner. Get that little experience like you talked about earlier in the podcast episode.
Right.
Get a year of experience, and then as soon as that's done, hit the ground running, lower your overhead, and maybe living a non-traditional lifestyle for a period of time might be something that you could do to then be able to make your own schedule work like you do half the year. You're, in Spain right now. You're on sabbaticals, but she tells me she gets on the riverside and she's like, "I'm on sabbatical." I'm like, "Who is this?" Like good for her. She's on
That's
sabbatical.
amazing.
Like I want a sabbatical. Like how do I sign up for that? Like so, you're making it seem just so awesome. And I know there's tough sides to it, and you kind of describe some of those things and. You feel a little isolated, but it sounds cool that you get parties. Again, like I said, I've been at my place. I don't get parties, like that sounds great. And so I think that you've done a great job. Anything else you'd like to add to the podcast? People can find you if they have questions, they want to reach out to you.
Yeah, I would like to say with the traveling nurse practitioner, other benefits is like, with the new experiences is, for example, Jack and I are from Miami, and Miami is hot, it's flat, you can't do much besides go to the beach. So it's nice to be in other places because you can learn about like hiking and, being in different scenery. And also being a traveler, you become more of like a minimalist. So you're reluctant to buy things because there's nowhere you can put them. You can only bring so much, with you. So I
Right.
like those benefits being a traveler as well. As far as more questions, I do have a blog, travelingnp.com, because when I started doing locum tenens, there was like no information at all for traveling nurse practitioners. So I, to document my experiences and give tips to new nurse practitioners starting to do locum tenens. And then I'm also on Instagram with my travels, which is at traveling_NP. And then I recently started doing financial coaching just on the side for fun. I'm at The Wealthy NP. And that's mostly because I'm sure in your experiences too, a lot of people, they don't have a 401k, they have nothing saved for retirement. And especially in your 20s and 30s, that's like the best time to start investing for your future because you really need that time for compound interest to take effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. I love that.
I love it. Well, one of the things too, Sophia, do you mentor people that are interested in like traveling NP positions? Like if somebody was maybe wanting to travel, could they reach out to you and you kind of give advice? And is that something that you do?
Well, I know Ebony that you had on the podcast before. She has like a whole, team with that. I just tell people, through my blog. So if they email me, ask me questions or, should I take this assignment? I just, respond to that. Yeah. I think with a locum tenens, I just like having my free time to do other things. So I don't mind helping people on the side, but I don't like having anything like official or like doing any business or anything like that.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Well,
the last part, anything else you want to add, Jackie, anything else?
No, I mean, I've loved this. I've always wondered about it. And so I was very excited for this podcast episode. And I feel like it's answered a lot of questions for people that are nervous about doing. I know so many people that could do this tomorrow. And I think that they will once they hear everything you've said. It's not as intimidating, I think, as people think it is. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Last part of the episode is the rapid fire questions. I don't know if I can handle rapid fire today because I'm on such an edge, but I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding, Sophia. But if you're ready, Sophia, we're gonna do it. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What was your first job ever? First job?
Yeah, my first job was a home health as an LPN.
You're a glow up from LPN?
Yeah, I had done a LPN program in high school. So luckily I didn't have to work because I had to focus on my studies. And, as a teenager, nursing's hard.
Yeah.
Sophia, you're
so
just
cool.
like hacking life, Sophia. You're like, yeah, I was an LPN as a 17-year-old. It's like, what? What? Okay. And then what are you most grateful for in the whole world? You've been all over.
I'm most grateful, honestly, for my family. I have a large extended family, and they're always motivating me, always my number one supporters, and I love that positivity.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
All right, last question, and I'm going to try to be funny with it. If you could pick a character or like an actor to play you, who would you cast in the role of you?
Oh, wow. That's a hard one.
That's
okay.
funny
It's
because,
where we are today.
well, it's not really a character, but my family always, we have an inside joke where they call me the queen. So my sister, she always says if they ever played me in a role, it should be like the Mona Lisa, like the painting.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. That's cute. Well, guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. Sophia, thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your expertise with our audience. And again, NPs are amazing. What we can do is amazing. And so I think we have to have a success NP quote. Okay. Success is no accident. It is hard work, perseverance, learning, studying, sacrifice, and most of all, love what you are doing or learning to do. And it's by a guy named PL. That's something to think about, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast episode. And as always, we're here to empower your journey. Bye-bye.
Bye.